The 1920s, booming era of social, political, and economic ideals for the U.S.
The 1920s held some big changes socially for the U.S. Let's start with culture. The Harlem Renaissance was a movement for black artists and writers, and they began to receive serious critical appraisal. An example is Langston Hughes. As far as art went, skyscrapers began to change in design, starting with the Woolworth Building, and it showed Art Deco design brought to life by Walter Chrysler's building and the Empire State Building by Carl Weber. In music, jazz was big. A big popular club of the 1920s was the Cotton Club that served blacks and whites. A popular artist was Bessie Smith, and a popular sentimental ballad was Deep in My Heart. For movies, the early movie industry centered in New York. Storefront theaters were called Nickelodeons, and short westerns, comedies, and melodramas were shown here. A big actress was Mary Pickford. For human rights, the Volstead Act in January of 1920 made the sale of drinks containing as much as 1/2 ounce of alcohol unlawful. The period of prohibition led to gangsters and crime like Al Capone, who was responsible for the St. Valentine's Massacre. Alcohol is illegal. And in August of 1920, the 19th Amendment passed, and women could vote. Yay!
The 1920s economy blossomed during this era because of the discovery of oil. Now, eventually, oil soon led to more automobiles and basically the industry of construction. Cars back then were normally just like play toys for rich people in a way, and yet Henry Ford was able to make a cheaper car and able to make people get around places a lot quicker, which eventually led to cities that sprawled the areas of suburbs and everywhere else, because now people could travel farther to get to work.
There were 3 presidents in the 1920s: Warren G. Harding, Calvin Coolidge, and Herbert Hoover. Hoover was the final president and had to deal with the Wall Street crash of 1929, but he also said, "We in America today are nearer to the final triumph over poverty than ever before in the history of any land." The Quota Act of 1921 set the ceiling of immigrants at 350,000. And also, the Ku Klux Klan, which had to deal with progressivism during this time, forced the government to step in with their diluted views of reality.
The 1920s was an era of social, political, and economical changes positively in America.